this video, we're going to discuss general rules for vocal health and hygiene. Most of the things that affect us, medical issues, environmental issues, and access to things like proper water or steam or sleep will honestly be out of our control. There may be times when you haven't had enough sleep the night before because you took a crazy plane to go play a show somewhere and you're not able to regulate the environment when you get there at the show. There might be too much air conditioning. It might be a little dry for you and you might be having a bout of acid reflux. What do? Well, the chief most important thing to do is have good technique first. If you have good technique, all of the environmental and medical concerns that will affect your voice can be dealt with. It can be dealt with to the best of your ability. If you had bad technique and you were completely dependent on a set of environmental conditions, if those conditions aren't met, let's say if you don't have 80% humidity in the venue, then you're gonna psych yourself out, number one, and number two, you're gonna believe that you're dependent on an environmental condition. You need to be dependent on your technique first. Then we begin to fight the medical conditions and the environmental conditions that can affect the voice. The first thing you need to know is that the voice and the soft palate, the tissues in your throat that make the sound, need to be moisturized. So smoking of any kind is generally inadvisable, and it's also a drying. It will dry out the vocal cords. So things that will dry out your vocal folds will be air conditioning, forced air heating systems, desert environment, lack of rain, lack of humidity. Also, smoking is a chief factor in things that will dry out your vocal folds. Additionally, smoking cigarettes leaves a residue on your actual vocal folds, which changes the shape and their ability to vibrate. So these are things that will cause the vocal folds to be dry. Now you can drink a lot of water and hydrate internally, and that will help significantly. But if we remember the anatomy, your vocal folds are in the windpipe. So there's no way without drowning yourself to pour water onto the vocal folds. The best way to keep your vocal folds moisturized is by steam. Allergy medicines, other medicines can also dry out your vocal folds. If you're having a bout of allergies, you're going to want to resort to steam. I recommend buying one of those portable facial steamers that are used for colds and sinuses and bringing those with you. It's good to breathe in steam just before you go on stage or right before, possibly between sets if you're playing longer sets, or before practice, or in any sort of condition where you're feeling a little dry. Bring it with you so you have a little bit more control over those conditions when you arrive at the venue or whatever type of environment you're in. Second thing you need to know about is acid reflux. Even though your vocal folds are not in your food pipe, which is where the reflux comes up, they do get covered in reflux because at the top, the two tubes sort of meet in the mouth. You can breathe out of your mouth and you can eat out of your mouth. Well, when the acid reflux comes all the way up to the top of the esophagus, it splashes over and it actually ends up in your windpipe and on top of those vocal folds. Stomach acid is pretty intense and you want to get that under control and see a medical professional if you're experiencing heartburn or hoarseness. Get a prescription, and also there's things you can do to combat it, like putting a board under the end of your bed to elevate it slightly while you're sleeping, to keep the acid reflux from splashing on the vocal folds, adjusting your diet, avoiding the intake of food and liquids prior to bedtime. This will all help avoid acid reflux scenarios. If you suffer from acid reflux and you treat it, most of the time your vocal folds heal and you can go right back to normal. So keep an eye on that and make sure you're treating it with medication and a medical professional if you have acid reflux. The next thing you need to know about vocal health is overuse, nodes, calluses, and nodules. The vocal folds need air to do any sort of work, whether that's singing, screaming, yelling, speaking, whatever. They need the air. If the vocal folds are left through bad technique to do the work themselves, they will actually slam together to try to make things louder or to try to get high notes or other things out that it can't do without the proper technique. And when that happens and the vocal folds slam together, then it results in swollen vocal folds. When you become hoarse, you got to rest those vocal folds, then they stop swelling, then you're able to go back to singing like normal again. You can usually get over it with some vocal rest. But if you continue to overuse the voice and you continue to sing improperly, what happens is that repeated slamming, that swelling will never go down. And when the swelling doesn't go down and the slamming happens, your vocal folds actually build up calluses. And those calluses are called nodes. There's two levels of calluses that form, nodules and nodes. Nodules are soft calluses on your vocal folds that can be removed surgically, but they can also be removed with vocal rest, which is the idea. Never have surgery on your voice without a few different opinions from a couple of different ENT specialists and laryngologists. But if you end up being one of these unlucky individuals with nodules or nodes, nodes are the hard calluses. When nodules go untreated, when your soft calluses go untreated and the voice goes unrested, nodes will then become hard calluses on the inside of your vocal cords. When you have hard calluses on your vocal cords, they can't come together properly, and you'll never be able to sing correctly or properly because the vocal cords aren't in shape to do what they're supposed to be able to do because there's calluses in the way, and you've created an entirely new rough and bumpy surface, and it will create a rather airy or gravelly sound for singers. If you have any concerns with your vocal production, please go see an otolaryngologist or an ENT specialist who can give you a laryngoscopy and actually view your vocal cords through a camera and advise you on what you need to do to correct any problems, if any. Now, we can avoid all of these calluses and swollen vocal cords and nodes and nodules by using good technique and by using it properly and using it daily. Avoid scenarios that will create problems for you outside of singing. Don't be yelling over a large audience. Jobs that have speaking, cheerleading, screaming, yelling over a crowd at a concert the night before you have to play a show, talking to your friends all day on the phone, yelling. These will all cause your vocal folds to be swollen and cause overuse. If you're out on tour and out on the road, you're going to want to have a lot of vocal rest. It's important and essential to prevent these things to happen. The voice isn't designed for a lot of heavy-duty usage, hence why we have to develop techniques to make that possible. But in addition to that, we need to rest the voice. Overuse will also cause the slamming, the swelling, and eventually lead to nodules and nodes. And these are situations that you don't want to get into. So watch yourself. When you're out on the road, don't talk all day. If your voice is feeling a little hoarse, then you're going to want to spend the next day resting your voice, which means not speaking. Don't whisper. Whispering is worse. It actually causes your voice to move and still be using those things. So if you need to speak on a day of vocal rest, then please just speak and speak quietly. Or write it down. Write it down, text, send a message, send an email. There's a million ways to communicate nowadays without actually speaking, so use them. Rest your voice when in doubt, and if you're having serious problems, get to that otolaryngologist. Above all, I am not a medical professional. I'm a vocal instructor, and I would advise you to consult your medical professional for any additional advice on vocal health, hygiene, and any issues you may be having.